Business leaders, as you know, are also criticizing the president's response. 5 members of his American Manufacturing Council have resigned since Monday, including the CEOs of Merck and Under Armour. The latest to leave the council is Richard Trumka. He is president of the AFL-CIO. That's the country's largest federation of labor unions. Trumka said he resigned, quote, on behalf of America's working people who reject all notions of legitimacy of these bigoted groups. Only on CBS This Morning, Richard Trumka joins us from Pittsburgh. Good morning to you, Mr. Trumka. Thank you for taking the time today. Listen,
good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You made it clear on Sunday that you were not happy. You called on the president at that time to call the violence in Charlottesville domestic terrorism rooted in bigotry. But you didn't resign from the council until yesterday. What did you hear yesterday that made you say, okay, that's enough, I'm out?
Well, the labor movement has forever been at the tip of the spear in ending racism and bigotry. We think it's not acceptable to even tolerate racism and bigotry, let alone defend it, encourage it, or aiding and abetting it. Yesterday, the president's statement really unveiled his true feelings about the situation in Charlottesville and around the country. And it was unacceptable what he said.
Which one, Richard? Which one got to you? Which one?
His spirited defense of racism and bigotry, the ultra-right, white nationalism, neo-Nazis, and the KKK, when he tried to put equal blame on both sides, when these organizations at their stem and at their core are based on racism and bigotry. That's unacceptable. That's an un-American value. And when he gave that defense of them and sort of put a pox on everybody's house, it became too much for us to be associated with that. So the issue of the Manufacturing Council is separate, quite frankly, from the symbolism of being associated with it. The council itself is totally ineffective. It's never met. It's a subterfuge to be able to deregulate industry. So that's totally separate. But it's the symbolism of being associated with it that we rejected yesterday.
So you're saying the American Manufacturing Council never met? It's never done anything?
No, it's never met.
Are you hoping other leaders will step down, Richard?
Well, I think they have to have their conscience, and they have to follow their conscience. I followed our conscience and what our American, the labor movement believes in. We believe it's unacceptable to aid and abet or even tolerate any group that's founded on racism and bigotry. We should be fighting against that and eliminating that. And we decided that we wanted to get off of that. But here's the second question they ought to ask themselves. Okay, so now they get off the council, but will they accept all the benefits of that council after it confers them?
Well, here's my question for you.
If you're really standing by your convictions, you would do both.
Here's my question for you. After a sense that the president was committed to creating more jobs and you had met with him, are you now urging all labor members to withdraw their support to this president because of the views he reflected in that press conference yesterday?
Look, we didn't support the president in the election, but after the election, we thought we had an obligation for the country and to workers and to my members to try to come together where we could. And we identified a couple of places. You know, it was infrastructure, it was manufacturing, it was trade, where we could actually come together and do some good. If we can, in the future, if we can work together to get things done there, we'll continue to do that. But we will reject and continue to reject any notion of legitimacy for groups like the white nationalists, the Ku Klux Klan, and other like-minded groups, because we don't see any legitimacy to a group that is their founding principle is racism and bigotry.
But is it a stain on the presidency for this president to say what he said on Saturday and then to reinforce it yesterday?
Yeah, it was shocking to me.
Yeah.
What it did was, I think it gives them a legitimacy that they're not entitled to.
He also said yesterday, Richard, he also said this, that by giving people more jobs, that would help end racism. What did you make of that?
I think he's confusing issues, because if jobs are created but people are excluded because of the way they look or who they worship or who they love, they're eliminated, then those jobs are beyond their reach. We're all about creating jobs and opportunity for everybody, so that regardless of what you look like, where you came from, who you worship or who you love, you have an equal opportunity and a fair chance to let your abilities take you everywhere that they can. His statements yesterday were shocking, and quite frankly, I thought to myself, you know, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you, because you really need to be prayed for when you make those kind of statements.
Richard, there are dozens of other well-respected executives that sit on these councils. Are you also urging them to step down?
I think they have to follow their own conscience. We did what we thought was right. They should do what they think is right. And we believed that the symbolism of being associated with that spirited defense of racism and bigotry was just unacceptable.
All right, Richard Trumka, we thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We do too.